All right. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. Well, welcome to the third Fireside Chat of 2021. The theme tonight is PhD in the 21st Century, What It Takes. My name is Mandy Mock, and I'm the founder and CEO of AppliedHE. AppliedHE is the new kid on the block with the aim of creating an alternative solution in ranking, rating, and branding that better serves the need of more learning and employability-focused applied universities, which I believe are dominant all over the world. In a nutshell, AppliedHE is an international higher education service provider that specializes in evaluation, branding, marketing, and professional networking solutions. Tonight's Fireside Chat is moderated by the always charming and engaging Mrs. Winnie Ely, who is a partner at Education Insight UK and secretary to the governing board of City U Dongguan at the City University of Hong Kong. Thank you very much, and thanks also to our group of lively speakers from the United States, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and the UK. Winnie will provide you with the full introduction of the speakers shortly, so I shall hand the mic now to Winnie.
Thank you, Mandy. Welcome to the third AppliedHE Fireside Chat in 2021. For delegates who have been joining us in past episodes, welcome back. For delegates who will join us for the first time, a very warm welcome. The AppliedHE Fireside Chat brings to you a global panel of knowledgeable and passionate speakers on topical issues that we care about, but limited by open and trusted platforms to have a good conversation. It is designed to be cozy, relaxed, engaging, at the same time serious, fun, provocative, thought-provoking, and blue sky over a cup of something or a glass of whatever you have, something strong. Most important of all, we welcome a lively interaction between our speakers and participants. We shall invite you to ask your questions once each of our four speakers have had their 3-minute monologues on the topic. PhD in the 21st century, what it takes. Has COVID-19 accelerated change and innovation that is long overdue in PhD education in the 21st century? What conversations, if any, have academic leaders have had on PhD in the 21st century during the pandemic? What transformational changes and innovation in PhD education, if any, are effected during COVID-19? Our panel members in today's Fireside Chat represent different disciplines and have experience in academic leadership across continents. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Professor Sandeep Goplan, is the Vice Chancellor of Carolina University. Before commencing his academic career, he was an investment banker on Wall Street and a lawyer. Sandeep was educated at Oxford University, where he was a Rhodes Scholar, and at the National Law School in India. His legal research has been published in journals, including at Georgetown, Northwestern, Columbia, etc., whereas his business academic research has been published in journals such as the European Accounting Review. Sandeep is a regular media columnist and has also appeared in a number of TV and radio shows as an expert commentator. Sandeep, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Winnie, for the very generous and completely undeserved words of introduction. Firstly, let me thank Mandy and Winnie for the kind invitation and opportunity to participate in this distinguished panel, especially with brilliant colleagues like Sally Chan and others who I hope to also get to know better. It's truly a privilege, and hopefully it'll be a chance for me to learn more than any insights I might share. So just to kick it off with the PhD in the 21st century, I think it's probably one must wonder whether many PhD programs have even caught up to the 20th century, let alone the 21st. But I'll set that aside for the present, and maybe other people have different experiences. But it's certainly true to firstly understand that a PhD is a lonely, difficult, challenging experience at the best of times, and it has always been that. And it is certainly no different in the 21st century, or certainly in the pandemic type of environment. That's the number one point to note. The second thing to note is, just as higher education has become a mass commodity over the last 2 decades with wider access, PhD programs have also changed. So the PhD of 20 years ago is really not the same PhD as today, simply because there are more people and more programs and more institutions offering PhDs than existed just even a decade ago. And with the same consequences or similar consequences that have happened to higher education as a whole, in terms of its dilutive quality, less rigor, greater noise, more sort of proliferation of participants in the market, etc. Similar things have happened to the PhD, and not always for the better. That's number two. Number three, we have to be clear what kind of PhD we are talking about when we consider insights or analysis here. One, if we're talking about the traditional PhD in a research focused university, and especially one that is focused on STEM disciplines with wet labs and so on, that's a slightly different kind of animal than PhDs in social sciences and so on, and certainly PhDs which have been largely online even before the pandemic, right? There's a great increase in online-only PhDs just over the last decade. I think they're quite different from the kinds of lab or certainly wet lab type PhDs in research-based universities. Number three. Number four, if you make that distinction and you look at where the PhDs today, especially post-2020 or post-March 2020, if anything, it has become more difficult, more lonely, more stressful, and more challenging, and not always for good reasons. I think what the pandemic has done is that it has kind of exacerbated some long-standing and dormant issues that have plagued the PhD for a long time. So for example, the lack of kind of counseling and support that most PhD students experience, and the isolation that PhD students have endured for a long time, only became even more pronounced since March 2020, because even the unintended support systems that existed in terms of peer networks, the ability to have coffee with a colleague down the hallway, chance meetings in the library that you could do, etc., all became impossible. So it really brought focus on oneself. And so that's a challenge. Many institutions did not provide any kind of mental health or counseling support, and they got by without doing it because it was always understood the PhD is for the resilient, it's for the tough, it's not for the weak of heart. But that no longer became acceptable, both as times changed and as these happenstance support systems fell apart. So I think more institutions now have had to adapt by saying we'll provide some kind of support to help PhD students navigate this environment, whether it is counseling type support, more online peer-to-peer engagement, so on and so forth. Next, the job market for those who were close to finishing in 2020 or were about to enter the employment market in 2020 either froze or was suspended in many jurisdictions. I mean, just think about the candidate who was looking for a tenure track job to start last fall, especially in the US or the UK, etc. Many institutions either withdrew their offers or suspended their offers. I mean, especially pending enrollment declines and so on and so forth. So for the candidate who had some sense of security to look forward to once they finished last summer, suddenly that sense of security disappeared. Similarly, for those who were planning to enter the market in 2021, there was a greater degree of anxiety that they had to consider as to what would happen 12 months from when they were originally anticipating completing. So that was a completely novel phenomenon for many people. And again, there's been a variety of responses, not always adequate. Many institutions, for example, encourage their students to continue in the PhD program and not finish on time. I mean, this is sacrilege, right? I mean, just 12 months or even 2 months before March, the dominant push in universities was to get people to finish, not to just hang around. So suddenly within the space of a few weeks, you had supervisors who were telling students to finish to be saying, no, don't finish, actually hang on and delay a little longer because you don't want to enter the job market right now and be unemployed. So there was a degree of sort of cognitive dissonance and I think falsity in many cases because students were confused by this kind of mixed messaging and it really did not help. And again, using them for temporary part-time help or TA positions, which were well ill-paid, is not what most people signed up to do a PhD for. They wanted secure, well-paid, good jobs, not to be glorified part-time employees. And finally, I'll turn it over to other colleagues with this thought, which is a more difficult question, and that is whether the disruption in education, in higher education, caused by the pandemic, especially the greater adoption of online education that is asynchronous, will change long-term the employment prospects of PhDs or PhD students who are about to graduate. And by which I mean the acceleration of adjunct employment and the less availability of permanent faculty roles in a purely online asynchronous world where you don't need the same number of full-time faculty because you're not expecting a lot of collegial work. You're really teaching course by course, will really turn a PhD into a kind of glorified gig worker with the prefix doctor. You know, I think that will drastically change the sector as a whole if some of these trends continue. And that's a very much harder question to predict, but hopefully that at least gives you some food for thought. So apologies if I spoke too long.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Santip. Always very thought-provoking. And I think you have quite a number of points that we can unpack later on, which I'm sure the speakers and participants are looking forward to. I certainly have jotted down quite a number of questions. The next speaker is Professor Dr. Shameen Rafiq Galia. She's a full professor of applied linguistics and TESOL at Sigit University, Malaysia. She is also the president of the Malaysian Association of Applied Linguistics. Shameen's experience as an educator and academic spans over 35 years and covers a range of areas from quality assurance, strategic planning, institutional marketing, academic programming, development and research planning, etc. Her research and publication centers on ESP, I don't know what that is, ELT, I do know what it is, discourse studies, language use, and also acquisition, including language in the workplace. Shameen, please.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you. The hazards of using acronyms, that's not common. Let me take this opportunity to thank Mandy for this invitation and opportunity to be part of this very interesting forum. And thank you, Professor Sandip, for a very thought-provoking start to this chat this evening. I would like to see that the pandemic hasn't actually disrupted us in that sense of the word. If you were to look at disruption, I think disruption was already here at some point. It's just a question of how we would like to view it. Yeah, so as far as I see it, the pandemic has somewhat changed the landscape of PhD education in the 21st century. While most of us might see it as a disruption, I don't see it as one. Instead, it has new ways of thinking and doing things, but it has also posed a lot of challenges along the way. Yeah, and if anything, the pandemic has opened up, from my point of view, in terms of supervising the PhD, different pathways towards doing the PhD. What used to be the traditional in situ with residence PhD can now be done without one physically leaving one's country. You can be wherever in the world and you can still read for your PhD. Albeit you have all the problems, as Sandip mentioned, not being able to pour that cup of coffee, walk down the corridor and sit down and have a nice banter conversation. What I miss most is having to take my PhD students to a cafe around the corner and sitting down and talking about their PhD. That can't be done anymore for the time being, but what can be done is coffee over the Zoom, as we are doing this evening. Right, so assessment methods, as far as I can see, will have to change. And I think this will be something that we will want to debate on later in the evening. And ways of supervision and learning, which require different ways of thinking. So as I look at it at the moment, the very resources are going to be a problem as far as I see it now as a practitioner on the ground. As I can see it, students are having lots of problems accessing materials, particularly the classic textbooks, which still not an ebook, and so on and so forth. So you can't physically go to the library, so you have to access everything online. Now, this is where I see lots of collaborations with institutions, book publishers, and book publishers will have to start thinking in different ways. What are some of the thoughts that we can put through about flexible access to online resources and shared resources among institutions? I think the pandemic in line with the PhD in 21st century has made institutions sit down to think about the way they view learning, digitalization and learning online. Yeah, it's created an awareness of institutional readiness. How ready are each institutions in accepting students, teaching them online, educating them online, supervising them online, and how do we help them, or how do institutions actually migrate to full digitalization and online learning? As we look at it, new internet-based technologies actually allows us to connect and engage with students in new ways. And I think that as far as I'm concerned, and I think I chat with some of my friends, have also some other academic colleagues who said that they seem to have a little bit more time to supervise students or meet students online as when they were, in the conventional mode. So, well, I think that is certainly true. And you meet them online on time, actually, because you're there and you're not hopping from one building to another. New ways of delivering materials, new opportunities for student engagement, new opportunities for educational collaboration. And I see this with industry. And new technology actually empowers students to become much more active partners in education. And what I term the agile institution, the agile supervisor, and the agile learner. So what does a doctorate mean in the 21st century? Post-pandemic, as some of the Sunday's thoughts came through, as to what the purpose of a doctoral research. Are we trying to produce high quality advances in knowledge that lead to genuine benefits? What does each nation need? And each nation's needs would be different. So the current PhD students who are ending are caught in between, or rather they're stuck. They are in the process of waiting to collect the data. Now, sitting down with them and telling them, start looking forward, rethink the way you collect data, which you may have gone to the field, you may have gone to the site in the past. Your methods were set up to go to the site. Now, let's think. We can't go to the site. So how do we work out your PhD so that you can collect that data? Say, for example, I have a student who would like to look at marine communication, ship to shore, shore to ship. She cannot be there. So can you actually use pre-recorded? Then how do you get access to pre-recorded data? Change the way you think about how you collect data. I dare say, after this pandemic or during this pandemic, educators or people in the field of research methods and so on will start thinking about writing new ways of data collection, new ways of managing data. And And that's how I see it, that you will definitely have to think differently and alternatively about the way you see your research. Because especially in the social sciences and humanities, you can't go down to the field right now. So you're going to have to think about alternative means. And that would lead to new ethical ethics of research, data security, and a lot of other things. Yeah. So so I think I'll stop here because I think there'll be a lot more things that we can discuss as we go along. So Winnie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shamin. I love the point you mentioned about new ways of data collection. I was thinking a lot of students might start to think about, that might be a really good way to be creative, depending on whether or not the framework would allow them. So we'll come back to that because that's an interesting point to pick up later on. Moving on, Professor Sally Chen is the third president of Tung Hua College, Hong Kong. Prior to this appointment, she was Pro-Vice Chancellor at Singapore campus and Dean of School of Nursery and Midwifery at the University of Newcastle in Australia. Sally has over 30 years experience in university sectors in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. Her career influences the tripartite mission of research, education, and service and practice. Sally focuses on translating evidence to improve healthcare practice outcomes, implementing teaching innovations, and mentoring new generations of healthcare professionals. In 2021, she has been listed among the top 2% scientists in a global list released by Stanford University. Sally, please.
Thank you, Winnie, for the very generous introduction. I'd like to thank Winnie and Mandy for inviting me to this very important conversation. And I'd like to thank the AppliedHE for convening this very important conversation. It is indeed my privilege to be with this distinguished panel. I'm especially very happy to meet Sandy again, my former esteemed colleague at University of Newcastle. From my 30 years of experience in academia, I have experience in supervising PhD students in universities in Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, mainland China, Finland, and the Netherlands. No matter where you are in different parts of the world, we experienced changes, not because of COVID-19. The changes have already started before COVID-19. We see changes in funding for research and higher education. We experience more economic, social, and environmental uncertainty. And now with the pandemic, it's a high time that we reflect on PhD study and the future of PhD studies. But I must say that we are not here to propose change for the sake of change. We must consider what should we keep, that are good things that we should keep, and what should we change in PhD studies. All along my academic career, I consider PhD training is for developed a student as researcher and scholar. So the term develop or development sort of is a process. So at the end of the PhD training, we expect students will move from a novice to an emergent expert researcher who are independent, possess professional norms and value. So PhD in the 21st century, what it takes, I have 3 points to make. First, traditional PhD focus on a very specialized field of single discipline, for example, nursing or medicine. With the COVID-19 and other sort of global challenges, we know that to solve complex problem, future PhDs studies need to move from silo, single disciplinary to interdisciplinary work. The involvement of different disciplines will offer different insight and methodologies in different fields to help solving complex problems. We need to overcome organizational barriers to promote this interdisciplinary work. Another emerging trend is the shift in focus from academic impact to societal impact. The criteria for success for current PhD student is usually centered around academic success, revolve around publication in peer-reviewed journals with high impact factor. With the COVID-19 and other changes, we know that PhD study should be about improving the society, and contemporary academia is more than just tracing citation. I'm not saying publication is not important. Publication in professional discipline journals may continue to be important, but the measure of impact for doctoral education should shift from academic impact to greater societal impact. We need to encourage this shift, and we need to set criteria to measure the social impact. The last point I would like to make is the career for PhD graduates, which Sandy has sort of mentioned that there has been a sustained increase in number of PhD graduates globally, especially in US and in China as well, across most disciplines. In the past, PhD training is often seen as a gateway in academic research career. But the reality is that competition for limited academic places mean that it is not a reality for the majority. And in fact, majority of the PhD students after they graduate, they will not enter academia. So we also know that many career industry require or benefit from PhD level skills. Thus, we need to see how in the PhD training, we can better prepare our students in the future for the career, especially in non-academic career and in an environment now that has increasing greater social and socio-economic uncertainty. Okay, maybe I should stop here and wait for more discussion later.
Thank you, Sally. Very interesting point. I'll pick up on your point about social impact versus prestige later. I think that would be an interesting one to unpack. Last but not least, our speaker is Professor Dr. Maurice van Rooyen, who is the Chief Executive for Academic Affairs at Global University Systems, a private sector higher education provider that manages over 24 HE institutions globally, and with a wide range of partnerships with public and non-profit institutions. I always say this, Maurice, I don't know whether or not you sleep. He is also director of the University of Europe for Applied Sciences in Germany, and board chair of IBAT in Dublin, Ireland, and GISMA Business School in Germany. Maurice was CEO and Rector Magnificens of the prestigious Corporate Leadership University in Nairobi in the Netherlands. He has held many visiting and honorary members positions in his academic specialization of sustainable urbanization and leadership positions in international organizations. Maurice, please.
Thank you, Winnie, for introducing me with this short bio. Much appreciated. It's at least more time for me to react. Thank you very much. Though Winnie and I know each other for a long time already, and it's great to see you again, Winnie. And it's great to be at this fireside chat. I'm speaking to you at the moment from a rather chilly London. We call this summer. So having a bit of warmth, albeit virtual warmth from my dear friends and colleagues around the globe is much appreciated. Yes, point is made earlier. I mean, universities, higher education in general, university in particular, are not known to be super progressive. They tend to be a little bit conservative. And when it comes to doctoral education, they are probably more conservative than anywhere else. So I do not expect a major revolution happening in the doctoral education in the near future, not even with the COVID-19 pressures, to be frank, but it is probably long overdue. We do need to really start rethinking a little bit about what a doctoral education is really about. It is from a European perspective, and my contribution is very much from a European perspective, a little bit of, how shall I put it diplomatically, a mess. where higher education around the world tends to converge and become more and more in agreement of what actually we are trying to achieve. When it comes to doctoral education, wow, where do I start? It means so much to so many different people in so many different institutions and so on. There is no sign yet of convergence when it comes to doctoral education. To start off with a very simple question, who actually is supposed to do a doctoral? Right. The conventional thinking is this is what you do at the beginning of your career, and it is particularly suitable when you want to go into an academic career. That is absolutely true, but the reality is different, and Sally already referred to that. People do this at the beginning of their career with a hope to maybe enter an academic career, but there is a very limited number of places available. So it is an absolute necessity to go into an academic career to have a doctorate, fair enough. But the truth is many will end up outside academia. I can remember some years ago being in France, and their big problem was that they were just producing way too many doctoral graduates. And the problem with doctoral graduates in the labor market is they are overqualified. They are too expensive. Companies get very nervous to hire someone who has become, let's say, too academic, right, in many fields. So they had to work very hard in actually offering those who did the doctoral program also all kind of other managerial skills, social skills, etc., to make sure they didn't completely put themselves outside the labor market. And I can remember myself when I was going into a doctoral path. There was definitely this question of be careful, because you might actually suddenly find yourself being overqualified, and it's not actually necessarily a great step in your career if you do not feel confident you can enter the academic career. However, that is not true in all countries. I mean, you just referred, Winnie, to, I'm also rector of a German university, and in Germany, really, if you're not Herr Professor, Herr Doctor, or Frau Doctor, this is useful in any field. I mean, you don't need to be in academia to have the reputation, the status, and so on, which you gain from a doctoral title. And therefore, it is good for your career, wherever you go, whether you go into academia or not. So that's interesting, these major cultural differences of how the value of a doctoral title is perceived. And then, of course, would you be comfortable to be treated medically by someone who is not a doctor? Right? You would hope that someone who actually is going to prescribe you whatever medicine or something like that at least has a doctor title, right? I would be a bit nervous if they don't have a doctor title. So in some cases, it is a requirement just to practice your profession. This is what I mean with, wow, it's very confusing. A doctor title means completely different things in different cultures, in different disciplines, and really means a different passport to certain career tracks. The same confusion happens when it comes to how do you get a doctorate. You know what? There are universities, especially in the USA, who actually give you a doctoral title mainly on coursework, a little bit of research, and for the rest, you just need to sit in a class and pass the exams, right? Now, from a European perspective, this, of course, is totally unacceptable. Many European universities wouldn't even accept something like a DBA. A DBA is not a proper doctorate, is it? It's too much coursework. I mean, I'm talking not personally, I'm talking from a European perspective. You will find that in a lot of countries, universities and regulators would be very skeptical about anything which isn't based on research. And as soon as it has too much coursework, yes, a course on theory and methodology makes a lot of sense, but as soon as it has too much coursework, they become suspicious, because it's really seen as a degree to show that you're able to do independent research. In fact, in some universities and in some disciplines, the focus would not be just on independent research, but it would have to be original research. In other words, you have to show not only that you are capable of being a good researcher, but you need to be able to show that you are really able to use that research to come up to truly original and impactful conclusions. Even more fun it gets when it comes to actually how do you assess the quality of the doctorate. Many countries, you just need to defend your piece of research, either in a private committee or in the case of the Netherlands, even in a public committee in front of your friends and family, in a big piece of theater, and you have to actually defend it there. And then you get a grade. And I was recently reminded of how confusing all this is when it came to professorial appointments in Germany, where the ministry pointed out that they really wanted to see doctorals, yes, but with cum magna summa laude or something like that, some kind of, wow, you're close to heaven when you have achieved that, I would say. And without that, really, you cannot become a professor. And I thought, this is very German. I don't think that exists outside Germany, to be honest, but it shows how, even when it comes to as simple as how do you assess and grade a doctoral studies, how confusing the world is. One thing you would assume that we would all agree on is how long it takes to get a doctorate. And everybody says, yes, that's 3 to 4 years. Well, not really. I mean, you have disciplines, and Sandeep quite rightly pointed out, for instance, the lab-based research and so on, medical research, some of the sciences and so on, mathematics, where you can actually obtain your doctorate quite fast in a relatively small time. Some of my friends had a doctorate within a year, right? Great. And then you have people like me who have spent happily 10 years on a doctorate because I did it in addition to my day job. And it's very much dependent on which discipline. Humanities normally much more demanding. They want really something like a book of 300 pages or something like that with extensive source work. It depends even on the university. And to be honest, it even depends on your professor. Some professors like to push a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further, and it drags on, right? So you can't even be sure about how long it's going to take you, which is the other thing, and that is, well, this is not easy for someone trying to get a doctorate, because for many of them, to be honest, it isn't so much a test of original thinking or skills, it's a test of character. Can you actually sustain working on a doctorate for such a long period of time? Here is the simple one. How much does it cost to do a doctorate? Right? Well, it can cost a lot in some cases, really a lot. It can be absolutely free. Speaking from, I'm Dutch, so in the Netherlands, you would never pay for a doctorate, right? It's free. You just need to be accepted by your supervisor, not even by the university, but by the supervisor who will arrange the registration with the university, but it's free, great. In some cases, actually, they would say, what do you mean pay? We pay you, right, to do a doctoral, right? So there's a lot of universities in the world where actually they pay people to do a doctorate in a lower salary scale at the university in return for a little bit of teaching. So it's very interesting, isn't it? How we can't even answer the simple question of what's the fee for it, and of course, in a link to that is what do you actually get for it, right? So it might be for free, but if you don't actually get much, it's still great value for money. But it's also true that when it comes to the role of the supervisor, quickly looking at the other side, it can mean anything. It can mean either a clear contract where you have you're entitled to a certain number of hours supervision every month or whatever, or it can be, well, basically go ahead and the supervisor now and then will read a chapter. The role of the supervisor is often not very well defined. It can be theory and methodology expert. Sometimes they actually even know something about the topic you're doing research on, but that's not a requirement. And most of the time, when people are really good researchers, they will quickly know more about their research topic than their supervisor, which is really what you expect to happen. And in some cases, it's more like text editing. They just start correcting your text, which is really where professors are overqualified or sometimes underqualified. Yes, I know, Winnie. I'll come to the point. And point is, we are ready for a change in doctoral education. I think we really should not just accept the diversity, but we actually should say, how can we come back together and actually start saying, what do we really want with doctoral education? Is it really just only start of career, or should we also focus on mid-career, end of career doctoral education? It is an area which is in desperate need for a great overhaul. That was my message, Winnie.
Excellent.
And thank you very much.
Sorry to cut you short, since I know you really well. Can I just pick up, before we open the forum to participants, I'm going to give the speakers the privilege to ask a question to their fellow speakers, if you have any. No? We have a question here that actually pick up on one of the points that Morris talked about in terms of fees. So Benny, I don't know where Benny is from, but Benny wrote a question saying that when education system in their country does not charge tuition fee for their PhD students, it might mean the PhD students is reluctant to finish their study because it's very difficult to find a job. But if the students should pay the tuition fee, then there is no reason for them to postpone their defense. So, thoughts?
It's true.
True, okay. No comment. This is just universal true.
Yeah, but in many university, be it pay or not pay, there's a time limit that you need to finish your study. You can't drag on for 20 years. Yeah, and I think more and more university has set tighter timeline and also sort of more sort of monitoring to ensure students sort of progress. And I think it is important because if you engage in a study topic and you sort of continue to research, by the time you finish after 10 years, your study is already outdated. So there's no purpose of PhD study. Yeah, and especially in now I'm working in Asia. Majority of the Asian university now set a very tight timeline for students to complete the PhD study. So actually, you can't drag on forever.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sandeep. Sorry, Shamim and then Sandeep.
I think what's happening right now, as Sally pointed out, is graduating in time instead of dragging it on. So you collect your data and then you keep on it. You find all the excuses under the sun not to finish it. And by the time, as Sally pointed out, you graduate, it's obsolete. What can you do with it? Or does it still have an impact on whatever you chose to work on? And I think it's graduating on time, especially in Malaysia, in Malaysian institutions, the GOT is very important. And it's also now, interestingly, tied up to your key performance index, that you have to graduate students on time. And if you don't graduate students on time, well, you need to answer for that. Because what's causing the delay? Is it you, the student? And so what's interesting for me is that tying up the graduating on time with your key performance index. Wow. And so there you go. You have the institutions producing graduates graduating by the numbers.
Thank you, Shamim. Sandeep?
Thank you. After listening to Dr. Moritz, I really want to be born as a Dutch person in my next life. I think it seems like a
50 days of holidays a year as well, so that's another benefit.
Yeah, it seems like a great gig to get, so I don't know how we achieve it, but it's a great thing. So thank you very much for the insights. But I had a comment or question based on the comments of all the three speakers, and in particular, Dr. Sally and Dr. Shamim, both of whom raised some important points about interdisciplinary work and different kinds of data sets and managing data and collection differently. So my question really is, and again, as somebody who's championed interdisciplinarity in different countries for a long time with not much success, I must admit, my question really is, do you have any best practices that you can share that in your experience have worked better in terms of fostering interdisciplinary work at the PhD level, number one? And number two, as even Dr. Moritz acknowledged, the methods and disciplines are so different that what constitutes good data in one discipline, or what constitutes good methods in one discipline, is unlikely to be accepted as adequate in another. So when you don't even have basic baseline level acceptance as to legitimacy of research, that even within the social sciences or within disciplines which are very close to each other in theory, how do you achieve interdisciplinary work? And then more importantly, how do you actually achieve societal impact and things like that, which are subsequent events from interdisciplinary good quality research?
Yeah, maybe let me say a few words on the interdisciplinary work. Yes, so when we talk about interdisciplinary, it can mean different things, you know. So for example, you can have supervisors from various schools. You can bring an interdisciplinary profession to have a conversation. You can also bring different discipline students together for conversation. You can have supervisors across university, not just across school, or you can involve industry as a person, as a supervisor. So there are different ways of when we talk about interdisciplinary sort of supervision or work. In my experience in working with university in Australia or even in Finland, I have experience working with supervisors across discipline. So for example, in nursing, and we work with a supervisor for engineering or IT or health behavior. And I think that the barriers that we are talking about is a lot related to organizational barriers. So for example, how to share the funding of the student if that has to be shared by various disciplines. Yeah, and if we have to involve industry partner as a supervisor, so what should be the procedure and what should be the qualification of that supervisor? Yeah, and do we allow students to take courses in different departments apart from their own sort of school? Yeah, and I believe if we can have guidelines and policy to resolve these organizational barriers, it would provide a better environment for disciplines to work together. Yeah. What I will see is it's not the discipline does not want to work together. A lot of time is this resources issue, organizational issue that prevent people to actually realize that interdisciplinary work. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I can react to that as well, I think that those are very, very important. Two important themes here. One is the duration of the PhD. Look, we have some professors who are really good supervisors, but you have two or three things you need to do if you really want to have a good PhD support. And one is the academic side, but the other one is also the coaching side. And as I called it, for sometimes it becomes a test of character. You really need someone to help you to go through that PhD research and writing process. And I call that coaching. And the other one is also the skill side, to be prepared for life after a PhD. And especially for younger people, this is very important. I remember when I did I was a visiting professor at the University of Pennsylvania long time ago, kind of early 90s. And I saw these big posters for PhD students saying how to do effective networking at academic conferences. And from a European perspective, I couldn't believe that you would actually include something like that in a PhD program. But of course, it's a very, very good thing to do. You do need to make sure that students are not just showing they're capable of doing a piece of research, but they're actually well prepared for their future career, whether that is an academic career or a non-academic career. And that links to the second point of the interdisciplinarity. If we focus purely on a PhD as preparation on an academic career, it makes a lot of sense. You want to keep people in the narrow academic stream. But actually, if you define it a bit broader and you say, no, we want you to be able to work at a high level, then interdisciplinary research becomes very important, because solving problems in society rarely is done by one discipline. It's always done by collaboration between disciplines. And I'm actually one of those rebellious people who actually started studying in undergrad in one discipline, then did another discipline at postgraduate level, and actually did my PhD in the third discipline and mix it all together. And I think you're absolutely right. I think Sally made the point. You know, normally you have a panel who help you to supervise. There are ways of universities to accommodate it, and that prepares you for a broader career than just academia. And I think that's definitely the future, to start thinking also at PhDs outside, you know, the narrow academic, straight and narrow of the academic discipline.
Can I respond to works on interdisciplinary research? I respond from the point of myself as a practitioner of interdisciplinary research. Initially, it was difficult to go knocking on doors and getting people to have a buy-in on working on interdisciplinary research. But once you find a way in and explain to people why we would need to work on interdisciplinary work, it becomes a lot easier. Now, for me as an applied linguist, I just take one of my research projects on looking at my field with that of veterinary sciences, and how I went into the field with my vets to look at how they communicate with their so-called clients and their little patients. How did it come about? By accident. I had my pet rabbit. I had to take him in, and then I noticed certain things that were going on, and I said to myself, hey, people study medical discourses, but nobody's looking at talk in veterinary sciences. It happens that suddenly I said, I could study the sounds dogs or animals were making when they were reacting to the vet talking to them, or their carers talking to them. And there were so many things that one could look into. But when I got there and when I was able to have a buy-in, it became so interesting. And then we started to look at more avenues for interdisciplinary research. Now in Malaysia, we are encouraged to do interdisciplinary research, and there are grants available for interdisciplinary work. And one of the things I think that is interesting for me is that when you look at data science methods in interdisciplinary work, and you're trying to do data intensive research, and this whole process is that for the sciences, you depend a lot more on hypothesis building. But in the social sciences and humanities, most often than not, you are actually using research questions. So how do you come together to combine that and then create a PhD that's data intensive and that uses data science methods? And I think this is where the social sciences and humanities can work together with the sciences and create a new dynamics for the way they do research. So I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. This is really getting to be very interesting, but I don't want to go this question go to waste. It comes from Alexander. So I'm going to let him talk if he wants to come in. Would you like to ask your question, Alexander?
He's muted. You may have to unmute him. I don't know.
He might not be here. Let me ask the questions because, well, we don't have sufficient time. So he actually turned the table around and he said, and he asked, Who is the perfect PhD candidate in the 21st century? Because Sandeep mentioned those who have great, who can go through the loneliness, went through the challenges when nobody looks after you. But in the 21st century,
one who is resilient, agile, able to adapt to changes, and knows what he or she wants.
And focus, yeah, very focused, have the courage. Yeah, resilience is important. Yeah, but perseverance is also very important. Yeah, it's a long journey.
Persevere, very resilient.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Well, it's 5 to 9. Unfortunately, I have to. Sorry, Shamin, do you have a point to make? Would you you're muted.
You're muted, all right. You've muted everybody, Winnie.
Okay, well, we can't hear you, so we're going to move on.
No, I said there was a question on massification of PhDs, I think. Has it been answered?
Yeah, last question.
Yeah. I think it's one of your students, right?
No, one of my. I'm not going to answer that question for her.
No. It's been really, really good discussion. I just want to say thank you to all our speakers. Normally, I give the speakers time to have a last word. Normally, they have 60 seconds. This time, I'm giving you 30. So, in reverse order, Morris, Sally, Shamin, and Sandeep.
Picking up on the last question, very simple. I have 3 perfect candidates. One is a candidate who starts at a career very keen, absolutely strength of character, and desperate to get into either academe or field they want to prove themselves in their research. The second candidate, though, is mid-career. And I think this is where we have a big opportunity in the 21st century to allow people who actually have chosen a professional career to take a break halfway. And there's a lot of companies also interested in sponsoring people to say, take a break, reflect on some of the issues in our own company and so on, and do a PhD on that one, which I think is a very attractive, a new form of PhD. And the final one is the end of career reflection. And I really would encourage university to start thinking a little bit less about PhD students purely as early career, and also start thinking there are different people, also people who at the end of their life would like to spend time to say all the knowledge they have built up. I want to put that in an academic context. And that, in my view, is also a great piece of research and also worthy of a doctorate.
Perfect. Thanks, Morris. Sally.
Okay. The PhD of the future is to prepare graduates who has a capacity to navigate between multiple ways of knowledge generation, communicate, collaborate through uncertainty, and use various methodologies creatively and effectively. I would like to close by quoting what Nelson Mandela said: education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Clearly, education opens doors, and PhD studies perhaps is one of the most valuable investment that student can make for the future, because it's substantial and because of its length as well.
Thank you very much. Very encouraging, Sally. Shamin?
Well, I would just say this. We need change, and I'm moving towards a practical PhD, one that involves the industry and the academics, who I always say are far removed from reality. So if we are going to actually address societal needs, we have to be in the industry and change the PhD the way it looks like now to that of a practical PhD. So how that's going to change? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Shamin. Fantastic.
Thank you. I'll use my 30 seconds to connect with that last question about mass commodification of the PhD, and just say, I think it's an important concern, and one should not be doing a PhD or allowing PhD completions just for the halo effect of having doctor attached next to their names, right? I mean, a PhD is not a degree like an undergraduate or a community college degree or even a master's. It is meant to be rigorous, it is meant to be challenging, it is meant to produce substantial original research, and that's how it's always been understood. And of course, that definition has changed as more and more people seek this halo effect of being called a doctor. So my only point is that universities and institutions need to be more transparent with students as to what they should expect if they sign up to do a PhD. It is not just buying the label doctor. It is actually a significant investment of time, of resources, of money, and more importantly, sort of mental capacity. If you're not willing to invest that with all of the challenges that it entails, really the PhD is not something to be embarked upon. But that transparency, I don't think exists at a sectoral level. So perhaps that could be something we could start with.
What a wonderful call for action. Thank you very much, Sandeep. It's been a really, really exciting conversation for me and also fun as well. So please put our hands together while you're at home. We can't see you, but we will see you later. For our incredible panel members, Sandeep, Shamin, Sally, and Morris, and obviously to Mandy and her team, Simon and Peter, and to all of you, wherever you are tonight. We have a really, today, for Sandeep, for example, today we have a really, really good audience, a big audience. So thank you. Mandy, off to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for the insight. Yeah.
Great. And I hope Mandy Mock will get her doctorate soon, right?
You know what they say about PhD, right? Permanent head damage. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for the very interesting and controversial discussion. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I'd like to express my deep appreciation to our wonderful speakers and moderator for their time and contributions. And also thank you, our participants, for joining us for this Fireside Chat. This is the third Fireside Chat of the year. And while this marks the end of this particular webinar, with many more events lined up in the months to come. Our next webinar is the episode 4 of the Squaring the Circle debate, scheduled on the 1st of September, 8 p.m. Singapore time, with the motion, universities that want to be globally relevant must teach in English. Very controversial indeed, so make sure you attend. And the next Fireside Chat, session 4, is scheduled on 6th of October, 8 p.m. Singapore time, with the theme, what does the post-pandemic new normal look like in higher education? As you can see, we will have a webinar every first Wednesday of the month, with Fireside Chats and Squaring the Circle debate alternating every other month all the way to December of 2021. Always on a Wednesday night, always at 8 p.m. Singapore time. So please keep your monthly first Wednesday nights free. As we're the new kid on the block, we're always actively organizing launches in the individual countries around the world. And tomorrow, Thursday, we are launching in Malaysia. Although it is primarily for Malaysian universities, you're also very welcome to join us. Just go to appliedhe.com/webinars to sign up. Do write to us if you would like us to organize one in your country. So far, we've launched in Taiwan, Middle East, Kazakhstan, the Philippines, Pakistan, Indonesia, Vietnam, and we're not stopping there. We're currently in discussions with schools in Africa, Russia, Japan, Korea, and China. Aside from webinars, AppliedHE does a lot of other things as well. In January of this year, we launched the world's first composite world university ranking called the Rankometer. This is a new ranking that is based on one single and transparent benchmark. Now, we all know that there has been a huge proliferation of university rankings in recent years. Students, parents, and even employers simply don't know where to look for a reliable comparison of universities. With the Rankometer, we've solved that problem by providing a transparent and reliable measure of university quality. To be precise, the Rankometer is a composite ranking of the world's 5 most influential world university rankings. If you haven't already, you can check the results at appliedhe.com/Rankometer. We're also planning to roll out our first AppliedHE ranking, which is very different from AppliedHE Rankometer. AppliedHE rankings aim to dive deep into underserved parts of the global higher education sector with an original methodology and approach. In a few weeks from now, we will make the first public announcement about the AppliedHE Private University Ranking ASEAN. So we will soon be reaching out to private universities across Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. In addition to launching the Rankometer in January, we also launched Future, the world's first professional networking platform created specially for the higher education sector. And Future aims to connect everyone from high school to professional career to lifelong learning for the 3 E's. Education, employment, and everything in between. These are the most important career milestones in life, from the moment you are a high school student to being a student in higher education, to being a successful graduate, employer, entrepreneur, or even an alumni donor. For ease of use, Future is just like any other social media. The difference is that Future provides all the relevant things that is important to the higher education sector. Things like news and information that's related to universities, courses, scholarships, internships, research collaboration, student and faculty exchanges, resumes, jobs, industry news, lifelong learning, alumni engagement and management, and networking at all stages of your life. In short, eventually Future will include the entire higher education and career experience from leaving high school to retirement. So just think of Future as the passport for life. It's free and it is the only professional networking platform you'll ever need. So please sign up for Future and encourage your friends and peers to sign up too. We have a new feature in Future, and that is Alumni Engagement and Management Service. Institutions of higher learning in many parts of the world have long underestimated the value of their alumni network. And we all know that investing in alumni relations can provide a high return on investment for an institution. A strong alumni engagement strategy is not built overnight, but fortunately, we can help your institution get started. Simply go to Future and sign up as a user, and you can start connecting, engaging, and managing your alumni from near and far. If in doubt, please ask us for a demo, or if you would like to learn more about how we can help you with your alumni engagement and management, please join our coming webinar on the 10th of August at 8 p.m. Singapore time. That's next Tuesday. We have invited a very diverse group of speakers, one from every continent, to share with you how and what their university is doing for alumni engagement and management. So we have a speaker from Asia, Middle East, Africa, America, and the UK. Hope to see all of you online next Tuesday on the 10th of August. Extra, our e-newsletter, and I've been mentioning this at every webinar that we've organized, and that is, we can promote your institution's news to your global target audience. So please send us your extraordinary news and press releases, or you can upload it yourself onto Future. It's yet another complimentary service from AppliedHE, so please do take advantage of it. And I'm pleased to say AppliedHE now has 3 rating systems. They serve as benchmarks and marketing tools to your institution's quest for global branding and excellence. We have the all-round job-ready rating system to evaluate the quality of teaching and learning and employability of your graduates. An English-ready rating to evaluate the quality of English language instruction in non-English speaking countries. It is also a great marketing tool for the recruitment of international students. And the online ready rating, which helps your institution benchmark and promote its online programs and courses. So do reach out to us if you would like to learn more about how these tools can translate into affordable strategies for global branding and marketing for your institution. We're also delighted to announce our first round of English ready rated institutions. A warm congratulations to Chang Chung Christian University from Taiwan, TDMU from Vietnam, Universitas Christian Satya Wakana from Indonesia, and Sogi Jaranata Catholic University, also from Indonesia, for offering excellent English as a medium of instruction or EMI programs and being the first institutions in the world to be AppliedHE English Ready rated. Do contact us if you would like to have your institution's English language programs rated as well. And last but not least, as you know, we are the new kid on the block. We still are, and we're very grateful for all the support that we can get, which is why I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all our very supportive webinar partners. A big thank you for the valuable support given to AppliedHE. Right, thanks very much, everyone, but please do not leave the room yet. We want to invite you to experience a networking atmosphere that is as creative and as close as we can get to a physical networking environment. So we're going to open the room now for a few minutes. You can all see each other, say hi, introduce yourself, have a chat. You can also leave your name and contact in the chat box, or even leave a message of your intention if you wish. This is as much as we can do for now in the name of networking. So please turn on your cameras, and I shall hand over to you, Peter, to get our social event started. Thank you very much, everyone. See you all soon.
Hi, everyone. Yes, please try and turn on your camera. I've desperately tried to turn everybody into a panelist, but it doesn't work that well tonight. I don't really know why. So I will keep trying while you guys chat in a moment. Let me first try and share sound. Computer audio here, yeah, because we need music for a party, right? Okay, Benny put on his shirt. He told me that in chat, so that's very good.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
Doing very well.
Hi, Mandy.
Come on, guys, unmute yourself. You can cross-check. Cross-chat is okay. Hi, Moritz.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, good to see you, Cordelia.
Hi, Cordelia. Good to see you.
Oh, hi.
Nice to see everyone.
Hi, Cordelia.
Hello, Simon.
Hi. Long time.
Missing all of you.
Yes. We miss you
It's
too.
been a while.
Been a long while. Hi, Prof Shamim.
Hi, Prof Shamim.
Where are you, Shamin?
I'm here.
Oh, right. Sorry to see you.
Yeah,
right
put it in gallery view, guys, and you can see
Sorry.
everybody.
Yeah, put it on gallery view.
Yeah, that's
So
what we
Namaste to all. Mubarak Ali from India.
Okay, thank you, Mubarak Ali.
Hi.
Okay, I
Next
see
time,
Mabel
come with a
Tan.
drink.
Hi, Mabel Tan. Nice to meet you.
Hello,
From
everyone.
UCSI.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
And Libeth, where are you from? Libeth Bobias.
From the Philippines,
Good to see you.
Ah, great. Where in the Philippines are you joining us from?
Valenzuela City.
Oh,
okay.
Venezuela, right.
And I see Catherine. Hi, Catherine. Hi, thank you for joining us. You look like a possible PhD student, if I'm guessing age. Is that true?
No.
Okay, future PhD. Sorry, come again?
Professor already.
Oh, professor already. Oh, just looks very young and pretty. Okay, very good. Anybody else want to unmute? Sorry, I'm calling on people. I'm very, very rude in that sense.
I noticed April had brought her family with her as well.
I see Subdev here. Subdev, you still want to do your PhD?
I'm a professor also, and I'm currently a PhD student.
Ah, see.
Okay.
Any other PhD students want to say hi? I'm a PhD student.
Subdev Kumar here was a PhD student. I'm asking him if he wants to do it.
Nobody asked what is the perfect number of PhDs to have, right? 1, 2, or 3. I know some people who collect them, right? They just.
So we have a max of 10, 12.
Maximum 10.
Maximum 10 PhDs.
Yeah, maximum 10, I think.
30 guys surviving.
Otherwise, you will not pick enough for your students' results if more than 10.
Excellent.
Where are you from, Benny?
I'm from Indonesia, from Sugiyavarta Catholic University. You know, the one of the university that mentioned as the English ready.
Ah, you're from,
right.
okay.
You that Benny, okay.
Yeah, Mandy, how are you?
You're a private school. We're going to rank you. We need to talk to you later.
Yes.
Well, we hope to rank you.
Well, I think a lot of them here are from private unis. Am I right? So we'll be in touch soon with our ASEAN ranking.
I think one of my counterpart university from Dasmariñas also here. I saw the symbol of the university, Philippines. But probably it's already left. I don't know.
Okay.
Right.
Anybody else still want to say hi before we wrap up the party?
Mandy, you know Dr. Cordelia from PKL?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Okay, you know her already, so I don't have to introduce you.
Yeah. See you guys tomorrow, those who are interested to attend the Malaysian launch. And then, of course, all the Malaysians, please attend. And, of course, next week, next Tuesday, for the Alumni Engagement and Management webinar. Hope to see all of you there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Stay healthy.
Turning on your camera.
Don't forget to be happy.
Don't forget to what?
To be happy.
Okay, be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, all of you.
Bye-bye.